Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Asaph Adonai, and welcome to another segment of Asaph Cafe. This time we have some really interesting guests on our program today. But first, on my immediate left, we'll start with Patti Reed, our veteran guest, and our hostess. Patti's been with me since the beginning of this show, just about. So she is our hostess for Asaph Cafe, and our mascot, Pee-wee. She's kind of hidden in between there.
Come to life.
And now we have, next to Patti and Pee-wee, Mr. Randall Williams. He's a graduate of the university, history graduate. And of course, Linda Brooks Curtis. It's always a delight to have her on the program. And finally, we have Mr. Robert Greene. He is the professor of history at the University of Montana. So I'm very humbled to have all of you on this edition of Asaph Cafe today. And we're gonna, this show is very impromptu, and we're also gonna do a tribute to David Letterman,
who's coming to Montana for retirement. George Clooney knew it.
So anyway, I'll start off with the traditional Burt Bacharach's "This Guy's in Love with You." This is one of my favorite songs. It's a shame I didn't write it,
Kind of young at that moment.
It's a fun song though.
He wrote so many hits.
Oh yeah.
I really identify with it. Show up promises, promises. Did he write Did You Know the Rita Samuels?
Yes, he did. He did.
She's aware. He's going to leave us to know. It's been 10 years, but I'm still hanging There's a dog
And here's the conclusion of the song. And I always freeze on that chord there.
That's nice.
This is just, I've done this song probably hundreds of times in my lifetime, I would imagine, but at this point in my life.
How many episodes have you played this again?
Well, not just this, but even way before I even started this show, I had been playing that.
Yeah.
That's what I consider my theme song. Not just for this show, but my theme song in general.
That's a wonderful tune.
Yeah, and Burt Bacharach left a lot of great music for the world. So help yourselves, have some of these goodies here in the cafe, and make yourselves at home, relax. We're going to be talking for a little while here. And
Taco plate.
I think I'll pass that right down.
This
yeah,
has
just go ahead and do that.
guacamole and
I'll help myself to the tacos.
sour cream.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to play for Pee-wee here.
Sure, I might.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, where is my dog gone?
That's always a fun song. I call that I've said this before, I call that the underdog song.
Oh.
Do you remember a cartoon from the 60s, Underdog?
Oh, sure I do.
Yeah, with the actor Wally Cox. Well, anyway, Sweet Polly Purebred always sang that song when she got in trouble. And Underdog would fly to her
That's how
rescue.
she summoned Underdog, as I recall.
Yes, that's how she summoned.
Yeah,
And speaking of Underdog, I don't know if people know this. That show, when it first came out in the 60s, was seen in 200 countries around the world. That's how popular it
Oh,
was.
wow.
And Underdog is the first character to ever fly, you know, in the Macy's parade, you know how the superheroes fly with their
Oh,
arms
yeah,
straight?
the great big balloon.
Yeah, Underdog was the first character to do that, which gave Underdog more airtime
Oh.
at that time, and that was brilliant marketing. Because they had like Underdog lunch boxes and toothbrushes and blankets at that time, and that cartoon was very, very popular. But like anything else, when the novelty wears off, things change.
Right.
So it's not out anymore.
Well, probably somewhat. See, here's a melody.
Well, it's kind of like Van Halen said, nothing stays the same, hits ground running, change.
There's a melody, see.
Then Van Halen stayed the same.
Something like that, see.
I know, Pee-wee, the taco plate is delicious.
See, that's kind of the melody. But, you know, talking about the novelty wearing off, you know how that cartoon ended? Underdog was on for almost 10 years, well, maybe a little over 10 years, without a single rerun.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, and it as it was reaching like year 9 or 10, it was coming up around the time of the political correctness that was first emerging on the scene. And you remember Underdog used to take this vitamin energy pill when he got weak? He had a ring and he would take this pill and then he'd be super strong again. And so it got to the point when the novelty wore off, people were saying, well, we shouldn't have our kids watching Underdog with this, taking this pill.
Pills.
He's
And I think that was, I think that was,
transgressive for the time.
yeah, I just thought that was like overkill, see,
Yeah.
because all that did was put a lot of people out of work, see.
Yeah, it takes
Yeah,
all
like
the
the
fun
artists
out of
and the
everything.
cartoonists and stuff.
And so that's kind of the demise of Underdog from my understanding.
But there's Rocky the Raccoon too that was running around.
But you know, just this political correctness, I'm all for political correctness, but sometimes it can be overkill.
Sure.
And I make
There's
no
no fun in
quarrels
it.
about it, see.
Yeah.
So
There's no fun in it whatsoever.
so that's, and you know, that was my favorite cartoon as a little boy. You know, right always triumphing over bad. And that's the way it should be, you know, as far as cartoons.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of these cartoons that are out there today?
Yeah.
No, I don't watch too many cartoons.
Well, like, and you know, I make no quarrels about that. Like cartoons like South Park and all. Oh God, they're so inappropriate for children.
Yes, don't
Yeah.
give them many beans.
So, that I just wish they could go back to like Bugs Bunny, the Roadrunner, those really fun cartoons and so on. But that's the world we live in.
Well, if you look at elections, you know, they turn the cartoons frustrated because they're all kind of Yosemite Sam.
Uh-huh.
And Wile E. Coyote trying to get it done, but I don't know what they're doing, they're getting madder by the minute. All you gotta do is put the pin down and think first, and I start everything in the right direction. Just thinking actually takes less than 5 seconds. You would save millions if they just would start thinking.
Smoke gets in your eye. Well, Mr. Greene, I really want to focus on you for a little bit here. How long have you been teaching at the university?
I think this has been my 8th year now,
Oh, wow,
if I'm not mistaken.
8 years?
8 years.
Good.
wow. So you made history.
And Robert, you can look at that camera and talk about that too, see? And talk about your career at the university if you want to for a few moments.
Sure. Well,
Go ahead.
like I was just saying, I've been at the university for the past 8 years, and really enjoy it. And the community of Missoula. It's great to be in a town that supports its vibrant local art scene.
How are your
some of the great
historical
talent that we
students?
have here in town. I think we're seated in the room with some of that remarkable talent today.
Well, I'm very humbled, you know. I don't claim to be the greatest pianist. You know, that's silly to say that. But I do feel blessed, and I like to share my talents with people, and you know, like this cafe show.
Sure.
And how are
And,
your students in your historical class doing?
Most of them are doing very well, and now that the semester's ended, I imagine that they're quite relieved.
Yeah.
Students have graduated, and now they're off into the wide world.
I bet you a few of them you're gonna be proud that
Do you
you're some
teach-
archaeologists.
Oh, I hope so.
Do you teach general survey courses or specialize in upper
A
division?
little both, a little both. Teach the introductory level
if you ever need a pianist for functions, just send me an email, sir.
I certainly will.
I'll be happy to do that.
We have lots of functions, and I think we could always use,
Yeah,
we could always use a pianist.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll be happy to do that for you.
Just work on some pomp and circumstance and.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second on the pomp and circumstance. When I was in high school, and I told this story before, there was this kid named Caesar, and he was a trumpet player that screamed to high heaven. You know how some of those trumpet players can hit the notes way up in the stratosphere?
Uh-huh.
And so we did a test rehearsal before the graduates came out, and the band teacher said, "Caesar, I don't want you to hit that high note." Because we just did the fanfare, dun, da, 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 dun, da, 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 and then just get to the normal thing. And what does Caesar do? I'm going to do it anyway. That's what he was saying. And I was sitting pretty close to him at the time.
Uh-huh.
And so the graduates actually came out, and we were doing the thing. And when we got to that da 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 da, he went, wait, and he stayed up there in that stratosphere. And the band teacher was just going like this because he couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Oh.
And if looks could kill.
Maybe at some point, sir, you can have a historical masquerade party.
Oh. That would be a lot of fun.
Have them dress up
With
like
some
they're
costumes.
That's true.
Yeah.
That would really boost them, If they dress up the right costume, you can give them an A for credit.
That's true. We can just have a grand
We're
costume
always,
pageant.
always looking for new inventive ways of assigning extra credit
Yeah.
points.
Someone can dress in costume, assigned or no.
Well, that's true.
But this way they'd have a reason to do it.
Yeah, we had our high school days, when we had to turn our shirts inside out, in backwards day, and then we had bedtime pajama day, and then stick pin day, so it was a little everything.
What was stick pin day?
That's basically when you go out and find any kind of pins that you could to stick on your shirt,
Oh.
or your jeans or whatever, and there was some classmates that I did enough with the t-shirt, but I had people that put pins in their hair, their earrings, and everything.
It's a lot of weight to carry around.
Oh, they were giant pin cushions.
But anyway, Robert, I'll be happy to play for you anytime we have any functions or whatever. I've been doing this for so many years.
Oh,
Yeah, I've been in Missoula 7 years, and I love it here. I moved here because I got tired of going 5 miles an hour on a 5-lane highway every day.
Sure.
Commuting.
Big
Oh,
city,
yeah.
and I got tired of the smog and the crime. And I'm not saying Missoula doesn't have crime, but in comparison to, like, say, Los Angeles or Hollywood or
Yeah.
New York, this is small potatoes.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful community.
It is, and this community has been very good to me over the years. Flyover of my piano career, I played at the Doubletree Hotel for 3 years. I played at the Patti Creek Market for 3 years over there on Southwest Higgins. And I played at the mall
I'm
for 3
still wondering how you
years.
got the piano through the doors there.
No, the piano was already in the Patti Creek Market when they invited me at the time.
I know, I'm still wondering how they got in there too.
I don't know, maybe there's a back door we don't know about, but how that came
There's a
about,
secret
Maybe they built a market around it.
I
That
don't.
could be.
Well, see how I got that gig at the
Ground
Patti Creek
something.
Market. This is a funny story. I went in there to get some toilet paper one day. In fact, I was going to take some of their napkins because I didn't have no money to buy any toilet paper at that time. And Debbie McDonald, she was the head baker at that time, and the piano was close by in that deli section.
Uh-huh.
It says, "Hey, Asaph, before you go home, play a tune real quick." And I thought it was harmless, so
Sure.
I sat down. I think I was playing Moonlight Sonata, something like
Oh,
that,
so
at
you had
the
that
time,
one
Beethoven.
Beautiful.
And while I was playing that, somebody called Jim Edwards, the owner of the store, who was close by, and said, "You got to hear this guy playing."
Uh-huh.
And so Jim came in there while I was playing, and then he walked up to me and said, "Hey, why don't you start playing here all the time?" And that's how I got that gig at that time.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about it, it's not because I'm a great pianist or anything like that necessarily. It's the concept of having live piano music in a supermarket, like in a hotel,
Right.
and that's why that worked. And so that turned into a 3-year gig for me at the time, and periodically, once in a blue moon, I'll play there.
The one thing people have to remember when they move from California to here, we have rivers only. We don't have real oceans and beaches. River banks and rivers. Remember
Uh-huh.
this.
Yeah, and
So
you
that's
know,
the
Size
point
that
I've been
you
told.
need beaches.
but see, my point is this community here has been very good to me over the years. It really has.
Yeah.
With all the piano playing, I've done a lot of piano playing in the 7 years I've been here. And then as the gigs were growing, I finished my first CD called Lean on Me, Jeannie Marie.
Ah.
And that was on sale at Morganroth. And then when I got acquainted with MCAT, I went on to do that brand new Lawrence Welk show. And then it got picked up by PBS, so as soon as we get funding, we'll start filming it weekly. So I have plans for like Patti and Linda
I think
and...
you should try Rockin' Rudy's. They're very
Yeah,
good.
I know. I mean, I need a lot. I need about $100,000 for the entire series.
Wow.
And I've contacted, foundations like the Paul Newman Foundation and the, was it John and Catherine MacArthur Foundation, the Ford Foundation,
Oh, yeah.
and I sent them the link to the entire pilot. And talking about the community being good to me, Mayor John Ingen was a good sport to be part of that show. And, just stuff like that. This community has given to me, so doing these performances and sharing this cafe, and of course that new Lawrence Hawk show with Pee Wee. This is my chance to give back to the community of Missoula for all that Missoula's done for me over the years.
Yeah.
So it's fun. And I'm currently playing at the Missoula Senior Center over there on Southwest Higgins.
Oh.
I played there for lunch. That's how come you guys are eating lunch here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, they invited me to play there for the lunch hour whenever I want to and stuff like that.
How do you find the audience there? Very receptive to the live music?
Yeah, I try to do more of the older songs like, see, you
Some
know this
classics
one?
and standards.
You see like this? Something like this.
Some beautiful music.
Yeah. Things like this.
Well, I'm sure they really appreciate having that.
I'm gonna stop right there. But yeah, I do some of the older stuff for the
Take some
seniors there. But what's funny is like when I do Painted Black by the Stones, they seem to like that better. Yeah. Or like when I did Star Trek or Michael Jackson's Beat It. I have these little piano versions. I'll do some
They
excerpts to
still
give
like
you an
the good
idea.
old summertime, like that one.
Yeah, hold on. Let me do a piece of the Painted Black. That's a short version of it, let's see. Or like Star Trek. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
William Shatner would be proud.
Contact him.
You never know. And the conclusion. See? Now, my style of playing, I take popular songs and make them sound classical. I trained for a whole year to be able to do that. The late Marshall Coswell was a music educator and pianist at the Northern Hotel before I moved to Billings at that time. And he kept saying, Asaph, you need to come to the hotel and just start listening to piano music. My first thought was, ugh, I don't want to hear any more piano music. He kept on insisting. So I made the decision to start going to the Northern Hotel at that time. And he had sheet music out while he was working. And I sat next to him and I watched what he was doing. And since I knew what the notes were, I knew he was doing things different. And so I started going there like 3 to 4 days a week for about a year. And I kept asking questions and he was showing me certain things even though he was at work. And I was watching him perform.
Yeah.
A year later when he retired, the hotel hired me right on the spot. And they paid me $236 a week going to that hotel and just play background music.
Oh, wow.
And I said to myself, I can do this.
That sounds like a dream.
Yeah. So I was there 6 days a week, and I was in the lobby instead of the restaurant section, and I was just doing, like the smoke gets in your eye, just while people were checking in. I was doing stuff like this.
4 hours a night.
Yeah, or in the afternoon actually. And they had a fireplace in there, and sometimes people would sit in and just listen to the music, And so what I did, I said I could probably live off this if I just saved my money and just live tight. So what I did was in the morning I would set up a practice schedule, and I would practice. I'd say my morning prayers first, and then I would practice for 2 hours just classical music, nothing but classical music. And I'd take a break, I'd come back and I'd practice some more, and I'd eat, and I'd work on scales and chords, and then in the evening or the late afternoon I'd go to that hotel every day and play. And that's how I started building up that repertoire based on the stuff that Marshall Coswell had taught me over that year prior to that.
So does the secret lie in the chord structures that you're adding to the melodies? Or?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
See, when you do classical music, like for example, this is Prelude in C by Bach. And when you do something like that, it's called rote, R-O-T-E, note for note. So you have to memorize the notes. And you play it the same way every time, same fingers, see?
Based on melodious.
No, R-O-T-E, rote is what it's called, see?
I know, but it's a repetition.
Yeah, but you have to memorize the notes. So what you do, like, all right, let's take the Minute Waltz by Chopin. Suppose you're going to practice that. You would do something very slow like this. And see how nice that is? Here's a piece of it.
Memorize so that you get the feel.
See how nice that is? And you can stop right there and you just do that over and over, very slow. Give the brain time to process all that and pay attention to the fingers and you'll start noticing things. Now with popular music, it's not based on R-O-T-E notes. It's based on chords and scales. So you have to have a good knowledge of major chords, minor chords, and
For the
inversion.
guitars and the drums.
It's the same thing, guitar. Now let me explain what that means. Suppose I do these three notes, C, E, and G. That's just a C chord. Now if you play this same chord but change the order,
Every good dog has a
see, can you hear it? Those are called inversions, and so you have to have a good knowledge of that when you're doing popular music.
And you have
Because
to
you'll be
have
able to think in your
inspiration,
mind's
too.
eye, see,
You have
to
to
do
be
that.
inspired. If you're not inspired, it won't last.
And see, this is why it was so much fun watching Liberace, because he could do like the popular music of his time and turn right around and do a Chopin piece. Like, you know, the Fantasy Impromptu or something like that. So that's why it was always fun watching him.
Yeah.
Now, some people just specialize in classical music, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to me, I think that that would be too hard making a living as a, they call it a concert pianist that just does nothing but classical music. You know, when you have like country music and R&B and soul and funk and rap and hip hop and everything else.
Yeah, that's what
So, see,
Blake
it would be-
Shelton's dealing with the voice.
Yeah, so see, it would be hard. It would be hard by our standard today to make a living, in my opinion, just doing nothing but classical music.
You need to be a more versatile performer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why I always appreciated Roger Williams, Liberace,
You're playing for the
Floyd
public
Kramer.
and what the public really likes
Ferrante
to
and
do.
Tasha.
you know, yeah, stuff like that. Now, you know, everybody's different. Some people just want to do classical, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you got to know that that's a lot of work for just such a small audience.
Yeah.
So in my case, when I do a classical song, I tend to want to do the more romantic ones that you can do in a piano bar, like say Claire de Lune, for example, something like this. See what I mean? Isn't that lovely?
I'm going to be at the Northern Hotel in July for my nephew's wedding.
See what I mean? Yeah. And so I just do the more romantic stuff.
Yeah.
Now, Randall, we don't want to forget you. Why don't you look into that camera and tell our audience something about you and your studies at the university?
Well, my name's Randall Williams, and I just recently finished studying history at the University of Montana under the mentorship of Robert Greene here.
Mhm.
It's been a wonderful journey. Learned a lot. And
How many years did you put in at the university there?
I've been here for 5 years now.
Okay, and you have your, is it a master's degree?
I actually finished the doctorate.
Oh,
So,
congratulations,
yeah.
good for you.
What's your future goal?
I'm teaching classes online currently, and doing some various other opportunities that are presenting themselves. So I'm sort of figuring things out right now and getting married next month. And
Oh,
excited about that.
congratulations.
And yeah, so just looking forward to what life has in store for me.
Well, maybe I'd bring your wife to be on this show someday.
I was hoping that she'd be able to make it, but she's
Future husband, girls.
yeah.
Now, when are you getting married? Do you have a
Is she
date
a
set?
scholar
Do you
too?
have a date set when you're getting married?
We're getting married on June 27th.
All right, well, maybe after you get back from your honeymoon, if you'd like you and your wife to be, would like to appear on this show, we can do a special,
She'd love that.
you know, romantic kind of show.
Yeah. That'd
And
be
stuff
a lot of
like
fun. Yeah. Her
So,
name is Sydney. She's great.
What's her name?
Her name is Sydney.
Sydney?
Yes.
All right, well, I'll be looking forward to meeting her.
Hi,
And
Sydney.
congratulations. Yeah, hi. Everybody look at the camera and say hi to her.
Happy
Hi.
fiancé days. What's your wife do?
Here's a little gift in advance. in advance.
Thank you, Asaph.
I don't play the song very often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All wore out now.
You don't do very many weddings?
No, I do weddings, but
Yeah.
I mean that particular song.
Oh.
Normally when I do a wedding, they want to hear something like a, what is that song?
Love lift you up when
You'll recognize it. I'll do a small excerpt of it. I can't think of the title right now. I'm brain dead right now.
Oh, I know that song. I can't think of it. Oh, Brahms' Child.
No, it's,
I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Paco, yeah, Canon in D.
And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I added more notes,
Yeah.
something like that. And make it sound romantic. See?
Yeah.
Usually people like to hear songs like this, for weddings
Yeah.
these days instead of traditional wedding song. And Pee Wee's going to get into somebody's lunch here.
Dang.
Pee-wee.
Stay out of the
No,
tacos.
I'm sharing this here at Cafe.
I
Really,
don't know if the nachos are
You might
part
have
of
to give
Pee-wee's
him
diet.
a
I can-
mystery spot at your wedding.
I can
without it?
get that, live without, yeah, really. They give it to me free there for playing there.
Yeah,
So this was a chance to share this goodies here.
yeah.
well, when I used to sing at weddings, I used to do the wedding song
Mhm.
by Peter Paul and Mary, and the song from Fiddler on the Roof, escapes me all of a sudden. No, Sunrise, Sunset.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
You know the words of that?
I can remix them.
All right, I'll do a version. I'll give you a chance to sing. This gets
I
in.
don't even know if I can sing.
sunrise, sunset. Those are the next words I have. There's more.
When did she get to be a beauty? When did he grow to be so tall? Wasn't it yesterday that they were small? Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, slowly clothed the wheels. Sunrise following another, laden with happiness and peace.
Something like that. Very good, Linda. Very
Something
good.
like
Very
that.
good. Yeah, yay.
Oh, Pee-wee.
Even Pee Wee gave you a little clap there. Did you catch that?
It's a tail wagger.
Yeah.
So, are you going to be teaching eventually when you get back from your honeymoon?
Yeah.
Are you an assistant teacher now?
Well, I was a teaching assistant for Robert for the past 4 years now.
So he was mentoring. Robert was
Yeah.
mentoring you.
Did you
Yeah.
have an undergraduate before you came to Missouri?
I did. Yeah, I studied at the University of Chicago before I came to Missoula. And I got my BA in history.
On planes and on
Yes, it is. The Missoula Chicago connection.
Here's some Chicago here for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that part. That's a short version.
Yeah.
Anybody know what time it is? Yeah, that was quite the group. I used to listen to that group when I was growing up
I
too.
just love them, and I still
They're
love
still,
brass.
they're
Yeah.
still.
Well, I'm sure they are, but I mean, they were just so
It's
fun.
Peter
music,
Cetera's
yeah.
son now, he runs a lot of the band Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yep. They had a concert on PBS. I watched it the other
Oh, wow.
night. It was really nice.
Yeah, they were fun. That group was so fun. And you know, you had to feel sorry for that trumpet player. Yeah, you ever listen to those recordings? That trumpet player was always screaming way up in the stratosphere, and I'm wondering if he's thinking, I mean, he sounded great. He played very well. But you always wonder if these trumpet players get tired. You hear them on TV.
Yeah.
Actually,
And they're like blowing
the
notes and
lip
screaming
thing,
high notes, and you always wonder if they just like get
It's gotta be
exhausted
physically demanding.
for a trumpet
Well, you
player.
know what?
They get lightheaded.
My
and numb
my
lips.
doctor's office a few years ago said, it's unbelievable. You have 100% lung capacity. And I said, why does that surprise you? And then I said, well, most of our patients don't have that. And I said, well, I'm a singer and I teach public speaking. I'm
Oh,
not
not breathing.
surprised.
Well, speaking of lung capacity and trumpet players, Are you familiar with Pete Fountain, the famous clarinetist from New Orleans?
No.
Yes.
Well, I did a story on him recently, and as a child, he had some physical challenges and ailments, and the traditional medicines were not curing him. So the doctors decided to try an unconventional approach, and they asked him to pick a wind instrument, and he chose the clarinet. And as he was playing the clarinet as a little boy, it started making him become healthy, the lung issues he was going through.
Yeah.
And he went on to become perhaps the greatest clarinetist ever. Pete Fountain, you can always look him
Yeah,
up. I
that's
mean, that's an
interesting.
incredible story.
Sure, it would develop his diaphragm. And
It did. He just started
strengthen his-
blowing into
yeah.
this instrument as a child
It
and
seems
kept.
trumpets even more so.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a clarinetist. I've never taken clarinet lessons, but it's always fun to listen to a
I
clarinet
have a
player.
reed in my mouth.
But you know, if you see Pete Fountain, he's up there in years now, but he's still going strong.
Huh.
He got well because of the constant blowing.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Stuff
know,
like that.
Jimmy Fallon brought Doc Severinsen back on the show.
Did he really? I haven't been watching Fallon lately. So
It was just, he goes, now you all might recognize him and some of you not, but Doc, play that song for Johnny Carson and we'll catch on.
You know, speaking of talk
But
shows,
he's
this
still
can
very
lead
good.
into our tribute. I wanted
Yeah.
to do a tribute to David Letterman. Did any of you guys see his show last night?
I did.
That's not fast.
Now,
I missed
what?
it.
Okay, well, I'll give you a flyover of this show. You know the top 10 that he's
Yeah,
famous
please.
for? Well, when the question was the 10 top things you always wanted to ask David Letterman. And so this time, they would have a famous person come out, you know, starting number 10. And
Oh,
they'd
cool.
read that, like somebody like, say, Alec Baldwin was the first actor that came out. And then they had other actors like Chris Rock and Tina Fey. They all came out and stood at the center of the camera when they were doing the top 10. And I thought that was an interesting way to do that. And it was funny when Peyton Manning came out, because he looks at the camera and says, David Letterman is to comedy what I am to comedy. That was so funny. Because, you know, Peyton Manning's a great football player, he's not a
Yeah.
good comic.
Yeah, there's
He's
some
quite
fun
funny
reasons.
though. He's-
Well, yeah, I know he can be,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was
That's
just
a great line.
that
Yeah.
great that top 10 was just right on. That's a great way to end a career. And I did a story on Paul Schaefer on the Wake Up Missoula program just yesterday, which tied into they're going out. And I mentioned that Paul Schaefer has probably had the ultimate gig for any musician in history. Think of it. The same gig for 33 years.
You know where he was before that?
Is it? Yeah. Well, I talked a little bit. You know, he is from Canada, and he did a production of Godspell, the Canadian version of Godspell, in his youth. And so we covered that aspect of his
He
career.
played on Saturday Night Live. spent
Yeah,
a
we
long
talked about that, and he was with people like Eugene Levy and all the people from the Second City TV.
time. SCTV.
And yeah, and some of the alum from Saturday Night Live and stuff. And then he eventually went on to become music director for David Letterman, because Letterman had two shows, you know. He had the NBC version and then the CBS version, and Paul Schaefer was there. So, you know, that from
Paul
Schaefer's point of
Schaefer
view.
did a video, in the Lights on Broadway recently.
Yeah, but I mean at the beginning though, that's an impressive gig to have that gig for 33 years.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think he probably had the ultimate gig of any musician in
Long-term
history.
employment.
Long-term employment. And Letterman has been always funny over the years.
Yeah.
But what impressed me the most about David Letterman's show last night was, you know, like I mentioned when we started this show, he featured his family, Harry, his son, and his wife that he's married to. And he thanked his family for being his family. And he said that nothing mattered to him but his family, not his success, all the years on television. I thought that was very impressive because that showed perspective. And then another thing that impressed me, he looked at the camera and thanked all the audience, not just the studio audience, but the viewers for putting up with him and watching his show over the years, because if it weren't for the audience, he never would have had that show.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a gracious way to
Very classy.
thank
I think
everybody.
one of the most funniest episodes I've ever seen on David Letterman. him and Richard Simmons always had this great personality. And on the first few times he had it with Richard being flamboyant as he gets with his hot pink outfits for exercise and such. He goes, I'll be right back. He comes back in with a fire extinguisher
Yeah, I mean, Letterman, you know, he's brought a lot of joy to the world.
Yeah.
Another thing that impressed me too, he acknowledged the entire staff. You know, and they were showing like still pictures of some of the like writers and things, and then they had a shot of the studio, the people behind the scenes, and that was very interesting. And I thought it was good that he went out while he was on top.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the next generation is coming up now, like Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel, and you know, all of them are funny. And of course, Stephen Colbert is going to be taking over now.
Yeah,
And I
that'll be
assume
interesting.
they'll have their own theme music, their own band,
Yeah.
and, you know, which adds freshness to it.
Sure.
There was another time when Robin Williams had just got done doing his bypass triple heart surgery. And he comes on the show, and that became the main subject. And he goes, "Well, Dave, we're at the club now. Of course, I'm a little bit ahead of you. I have kids older than yours, and Harry. Isn't it Harry? Well, you're Harry, so there we are. But, you know, you and I had the ticker operation, so they started talking about that. And, you know, he says, the annoying part is you have to be reminded by your heart, it's time to slow down. Even if you don't want to."
Yeah. Robin Williams, he was such a funny
I
comedian
still
to
love
me.
him. I miss him.
Yeah.
Robert, did you get enough
What a
to
loss.
eat there?
Oh, yeah. I was
Did you have
enjoying
some of the tacos?
I did, thank you. It was delicious.
Yeah, that's right. That was
And
a
I
big loss
remember
losing him.
when David Letterman used to have his mom on holidays.
Oh,
Mom
yeah.
would be making a pie. And
Yeah, they showed pictures of his mom last night, still pictures, you know.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
met
to
him
see
in
her on the show.
1978 in Las Vegas under his real name, and he introduced me to Paul. And I think Paul Schaefer is his real name.
Yeah, Paul Schaefer, yeah,
But,
and he's from Canada, yeah.
David was there promoting his sister Wanda Medrud.
Yeah, you know another person that he promoted
to sing. He wanted to promote a concert for her when he was on his way to New York.
Another thing that Letterman did too, as far as promoting people, Rupert, the deli guy.
Oh, yeah.
They, you know,
Yeah,
he
I
was
remember
just
him, yeah.
when they first introduced him, he was just the man working the deli shop. And David Letterman went in there, and they took those cameras in there, and then they started working that, and that worked for, you know, they acknowledged Rupert. He became part of the show eventually over time.
Yeah.
And it was funny. And one of the funniest skits I ever saw on Letterman's show, they had this skit, how many Spider-Mans can you get into a Subway sandwich shop? So they had these people wearing these Spider-Man costumes, and they actually went into a Subway, and they had like about 50 of them all shoved up in there. And what was so funny was there was this one person that was just continuing to eat, and there was a Spider-Man like right up in his face, and he just kept eating, ignoring the Spider-Mans in there. And I thought that was so funny. And then they were trying to shove more Spider-Mans. They had about 50 Spider-Mans in there, and they still wanted to get more, and they couldn't find any more Spider-Mans. So then this guy comes in with this Superman costume, and it was funny because he had a bald spot on the back of his head. See, and David Letterman noticed it. So when Superman walked in there, Letterman went right after the bald spot because, you know, Superman is supposed to be like this perfect specimen, no flaws. And it was so funny, and I just felt sorry for that Superman. You know, Letterman laid into him. And then it got to the point there were so many Spider-Mans and Supermans and things into this shop that the cops came for real.
There we are.
And so, and then I guess when the police realized that this was a skit for Letterman, they kind of backed off a little bit. But
He made him famous.
Probably post 9/11.
yeah, this was.
There's only so many
Yeah, but it was.
superheroes you can have.
But it was funny because they would have like one Spider-Man walk in, and he just like he'd stand like he's making an order, and then a second Spider-Man would walk in. By the time they had about 50 of them in there, and it was all crowded in there, and it was funny watching the reaction of the audience. But this one guy that just kept eating and was ignoring everything, Letterman zeroed in on that guy.
Yeah.
And it was funny. And then poor Superman got picked on. But you know, that was just, I just thought that was so amusing. And of course now television is not going to be quite the same without Letterman.
They just did they had like a skit where Norm, I can't think of his last name, but he was they showed an old episode of Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And he was actually in person. They did a skit where he was actually David Letterman, and they invited Kevin Spacey to be on there, and he was supposed to be a celebrity, and he was wasn't really acknowledging Kevin Spacey at all. He was just going, ugh, jeez. Got his own little thing there. And then he said, oh, well, thank you for coming on the show, everybody. He goes, what? I didn't tell you about my movie. Oh, well, that's okay. Next time. Well, tune in tomorrow, Wham.
That's called the Manana song. That ties in what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
I mean, as a broadcaster, would you say that you've been influenced by David Letterman and
well, actually, okay, we want to talk about talk show host. When I was a little boy, my parents, they used to watch Jack Parr. I don't know if people would remember Jack Parr or not.
I do.
He was one of the original hosts of the Tonight Show. And see, the history of the Tonight Show, it was Steve Allen. I don't know if people remember him. He was a famous comedian. You ever heard of him? Steve Allen?
Oh, yeah.
He was a fantastic pianist,
Very
composer.
political.
Yeah, but we're talking about early 50s maybe. It was Steve Allen, and then it was a man named Jack Parr who hosted the Tonight Show. And after Jack Parr, of course, Johnny Carson, who went on to do it for 30 years.
Right.
And then after Johnny Carson was Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien. And that's kind of the history of the Tonight Show there. And I liked it when Conan was hosting. I just found that so funny. Now his reign was very short, obviously, but
You went cable.
yeah. And of course, Letterman was on too. See, my parents used to watch Jack Parr and Carson, and of course their humor was different then. It wasn't based on, people's going on with their personal life or misfortunes or whatever. It was a different kind of comedy. And my parents used to always watch Carson as all America did, and that's how I got familiar with the talk show thing.
And Leno was very typical now. I
Yeah.
mean, he zeroes right in on current events.
Yeah, and I didn't particularly always care for Leno, not to pick on him. He's a brilliant comedian, but that just wasn't my forte. And of course, David Letterman was doing that too, but see, Letterman is probably going to be considered the ultimate king of talk show because he's been on longer than anyone in history, including Johnny Carson, so
Well, Jay Leno.
that's quite an accomplishment, if you
Yeah.
think about it.
The longevity, yeah.
Jay Leno
Yeah,
to me
33
looked like
years.
Dudley Do-Right. Because of his chin, he looked like Dudley Do-Right.
But that's kind of a flyover of the history of talk shows and or the late shows. And of course now Jimmy Fallon is hosting the Tonight Show, and Stephen Colbert
Yeah,
will be
that's
doing
totally
the new Late Show, taking Letterman's place. And of course there's already Jimmy Kimmel and some of the other younger ones. So it's kind of fun to watch these younger guys create their own comedy, their own band, their own style.
Johnny Carson was the inventor of the talk shows when it came in the 70s.
Well, he might have been innovative for his time, but no, Steve Allen started that.
That's
whole-
right, definitely.
He started the whole thing, and a
I
lot of
like
people,
Jack Parr.
a lot of people in this generation probably won't even remember Steve Allen or Jack Parr. But I'm a lot older than I look, so my parents used to watch Jack Parr, so when I was growing up. And of course, they didn't have the technology at that time, as far as their sets and things like we have now. Because you look at like Letterman's last set, it's like really evolved
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And of course, some of the stars of the past, people probably won't remember, like Groucho Marx, who used to appear on the Tonight
Well,
Show.
they started out with black and white.
Yeah, a lot of those
Well,
early shows were black
That's
and
all that we had for television, was black and white.
yeah. And so
Until
on.
1960 what? 66 or 67. I'm old. I turned 66 last.
So I brought,
Yeah, we did
I brought home when I was
a
born.
happy birthday to you too.
Almost the classic.
Classic, yeah.
Yeah,
So when I was born, the color.
yeah, Inspector Gadget.
Right, I was
Yes, Gadget.
You know that? Have you ever watched that cartoon?
Uh-huh.
I find that an interesting cartoon. The actor Don Adams was the voice of Inspector Gadget, and Don Adams goes way back. I don't think people will remember him, but he did a cartoon. He did a cartoon character called Tennesse Tuxedo.
Yeah.
That's way before your time. And it
But
was
he
this.
was live on another show.
Yeah, well, he had Get Smart too.
Yeah.
He did that sitcom, Mel Brooks sitcom, Get Smart.
And Matthew Broderick played Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, that was a pretty good film too. But Don Adams did. He had a sidekick who was a walrus named Chumley, and Tennesse Tuxedo. That was the voice of Don Adams, and they would always get into trouble. And then Mr. Whoopi would get them out of trouble. Mr. Whoopi was like this scientist guy, and he had this little chalkboard that would grow, it would stretch, and then he would explain like science and all this stuff to Tennesse Tuxedo, and it was just the same plot, but it was so fun to watch that cartoon. But those cartoons they're of the past. People won't remember those cartoons like Underdog, Tennesse Tuxedo, and just a whole bunch of others.
It's
I can
time to
think
bring
of.
it back.
Yeah.
Bring the past back.
And a
That's
lot,
what we need.
like I said, before your time, obviously.
Right.
Like Fearless Fly. Have you ever heard of him?
I've not.
Nope.
No.
This cartoon was a fly that lived in a matchbox. And he had these big glasses, like twice the size of his body. And he was really strong with the glasses. And at the beginning of the cartoon it would say, insecticide will not stop him. And you see this big can of bug spray go after him. And he just blow it away. Because he had his glasses on. He had his cape. He was like this fly with these big glasses, like Urkel, on Family Matters. And a fly swatter won't swat him. And there's a big giant fly swatter would go, and he'd stand there with his arms like Superman, and the fly swatter would go right through him and not hurt him. But what was funny about this character is, how he got weak? If he took his glasses off, he became weak. So he'd be standing there getting in the bad guy's face, right? And the glasses were really big. And so the bad guys would just reach over and take his glasses off, and then he'd become weak. And it was funny. It was just really amusing. But that's the cartoons they had when I was growing up, and they don't make cartoons like that anymore.
No.
They had like the Archie's cartoon of the past.
Mhm.
They had, all kinds of cartoons, like the original Spider-Man, the one that went like this. You ever heard that?
Yeah.
That's the original Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And they made
But,
a TV show of it, and then they made Wonder Woman.
Yeah. And
Green Lantern.
speaking of Wonder Woman, you know what I always appreciated about that character? Was fighting the Nazis. That was the original premise of Wonder Woman. She came during the 1940s, during World War II.
From
Right.
Paradise
When they
Island.
first introduced that character, like in the comic books and stuff, and she always fought the Nazis. So when they had the TV show with Linda Carter, it was very believable because she was fighting the Nazis.
And that was about the same time when women were called up in large numbers into the workforce to replace the men who had gone overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So it ties in with that area.
Yeah.
They're in the airplanes. Those were close ones. But everybody, all the men appreciated Wonder Woman
Well, of course.
for the costume she wore so well as Linda Carter.
Yeah, well,
But it
why do you
was
think I
just-
watched Wonder Woman? I didn't watch it because of Lyle Wagner. No offense to him. He's a good-looking guy, but- No, I was growing up and I liked Linda Carter. You know what impressed me about
She's timeless.
Yeah. What I liked about the character of Wonder Woman was those bracelets.
Oh yeah, and
If
she's
you're familiar
fast.
with comic books, because she could deflect bullets with,
Right.
and you have to be able to see very fast.
She was the first bulletproof person.
And it was funny. Did you ever see the pilot to Wonder Woman, the original television pilot?
No.
No.
Well, they had this scene where Wonder Woman was first emerging on the scene, and there was these bank robbers. That, you know how they always old-fashioned robbing the bank, and it's all corny looking on TV.
Oh.
Yeah.
And she says, "Hey, you guys shouldn't be robbing that bank like that. That's not nice." And one of the robbers says, "Shoot her." And the guy says, "I never shot a woman before." And so she's like getting in defense like this, with the bracelets. And so the bad guy starts shooting her. She's deflecting the bullets with the bracelets, and they're like
Super fast.
trying to shoot her, and they couldn't get her. And so she goes after the bad guys and beats him up and lifts up this car. And
Oh, wow.
then the cops come, and then the cops didn't believe that Wonder Woman had all that power. So they wanted her to like come down to the police headquarters and give a statement and tell the story, and that's how the pilot started.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the police were being really sarcastic because she had that Wonder Woman outfit, and the banker came out and said, "This lovely lady in this bathing suit saved our lives." The cops didn't believe it at first, and I mean she had the car lifted up in the air when the cops first pulled up. She puts the car down, and But that's how the pilot started, and it went on to become an interesting series, the
Yeah.
Wonder Woman series. And you know, the actress Linda Carter, she's really a professional singer in real life. Very good singer
She had an
too.
act in Las Vegas, and
Yeah.
people there used to talk about how she would come and perform without makeup. She was a natural beauty.
And she had that perfect smile. They always took a picture, last filming, she's always smiling.
Yeah, no, she's a really good singer, Linda Carter. You can probably, you know, the fascinating thing about YouTube is you can look things up. So I'm sure if you put the name of Linda Carter, you might
Oh,
see
yeah.
some of her concert performances. She was quite good. Well, still is.
Yeah.
You don't lose it just because you get older. And speaking of not losing it, one of the Letterman's last guests was Bob Dylan. I thought that was very impressive to see Bob Dylan of all
He had a hard
people.
time standing on stage, you know.
Well, he's
during- on the
physically older, but
calls.
the voice is still there once he starts singing. It's amazing how.
Well, the thing is, he was more of a talker than singer.
No, he was singing. He
I
was
mean-
really singing.
The way
and he
was-
actually
the
Yeah,
Yeah,
way
I
he
know
sang was
the
more
poet.
talking.
Yeah, and I understand that,
And it was
but
a so long song, which was really cool.
but it was cool to have Bob Dylan as one of Letterman's last guests before that final guest of what is their
The Foo
name?
Fighters.
Foo Fighters, yeah. But yeah, it was cool to see Bob Dylan. And what's interesting about singers is they get physically older and they may get frail and stuff, but when they start singing, the voice is still there. In fact, do you remember a blues singer named Joe Turner from the past? You ever heard of him?
Big Joe Turner.
Yeah, Big Joe Turner. I saw him in concert in real life.
Wow.
And he was like really big and couldn't walk. So they had people holding him up. And they set him in front of the stage where his legs were overlapping the stage and they handed him the mic. And oh my goodness, when he started singing, you didn't see Big Joe Turner, you heard that voice.
Yeah.
He got cut loose with that blues and I was like, holy cow, how did that guy do that? He sounded great. He did not disappoint.
Yeah.
Kind
And
of
of
like
course-
Eddie Murphy says about Teddy Badgers. Band go, ooh, boo, 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 and then you stole your panties on the stage.
Well, yeah, speaking of that, I went to a Teddy Pendergrass. My father took me to see Teddy Pendergrass. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Oh,
He was a soul singer, and they were doing the same thing. These ladies were taking underwear and throwing on stage. And I think that was part of the act. I think it was staged, but
Oh, Teddy.
all those soul singers, they have their little niche.
Uh-huh.
And of course, we lost probably the greatest blues singer of all time, B.B. King. We just lost
Right.
him, what, a week ago?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
bummer.
well, he was like 89.
Right, but he was worth it though.
Oh, yeah.
He came to Missoula, he was at the brewery, the factory
You know, I
over
think I'd heard about that.
on outside North Reserve, yeah.
You know, Ray Charles was supposed to have come to Missoula too. This was before I moved to Missoula. I was thinking of driving up at the time to see Ray Charles, but unfortunately he passed away before that concert took place.
The UC Center,
They had like marquee flyers. You know, I think he's going to be performing with the Missoula Symphony, if I remember that correctly, at that time. And that would have been way cool if he had lived long enough to do that.
the UC Center, a lot of times at water.
Well, let's have fun with Ray
Yeah.
Charles here.
When you go to UC Center, if you go right at the beginning of the dead center part of the campus, you will see all the former people that came and did concerts. It's pretty cool to watch.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We've had quite a few times on the Randy Meisner, Ford Flash, and Quiet Riot, and ZZ Top, Loverboy.
Quiet Riot.
Oh yeah, we felt the noise.
Yeah.
You certainly
I was
did the Harry
impressed
Ansel,
that
that's what it
Sir
kept
Paul
me from
McCartney
Yeah.
performed in Adams.
Oh yeah. I heard he did another hour encores alone in that concert.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty
That's
impressive.
hard to believe.
Paul McCartney.
Yo, and we had the Rolling Stones too. But the nice thing about when they have an outdoor concert, you don't really have to pay to get in. You can just stand on the side. You get a big screen TV. You can see.
They allowed that too, you know, from what I understand. I like this song. Alright, here's a bit of trivia. This song that I'm playing, what television show did they use this on then?
Designing Women.
Yeah, there you go.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that was their theme song on that show. Here's another piece of trivia. Who was the trumpeter that they featured on that show for the theme song Georgia on My Mind? Because that was based in Georgia, Designing Women with
I'm
Dixie
just gonna
Carter.
take guesses.
Take a guess.
Herb Alpert?
Who do you think was the trumpeter?
Oh, I would have no idea.
Herb
Okay.
Alpert.
Herb Alpert. Who do you think was the trumpeter?
Maynard Ferguson.
Where you're kind of close, was Doc Severinsen. Doc Severinsen was the trumpeter that did the theme song for the series. And that was an interesting show. It was a comedy based on being in the southern state, the South. And they did some issues for that time period when that show was in its heyday. And like, for example, Delta Burke's character, she wasn't a racist, but she had to learn how to get used to having African-American friends on that
And
series.
Meshack Taylor just played that to a perfect.
Yeah, he was the perfect actor for that.
Absolutely perfect.
He always got her out of trouble, and she would appreciate it, but she just had a hard time at first learning how to have an African-American friend. So that was very believable for that time period there. But, that was like, 30 years ago, that show, something like that?
I don't know, but I was still teaching at Townsend.
Yeah. But, speaking of race relations, me personally, I don't care what race a person is. I don't care what color they are. I think that is the stupidest thing in the world to not like someone because they're not your color or your race or your creed or whatever you call it, your background. And you know where I learned that?
What matters is the content of my character.
Well, no, I'm not trying to get all political, but
Martians
where
were
I
not
learned that it
green.
doesn't matter. My father, I come from a military family, and my father was stationed in Taiwan when I was a little boy. And so they had Monday night football games where the Chinese would be playing. And then after that, my father would be in there playing poker with the Chinese in his back room. Like one of them Richard Gere movies where everybody's like, no, they're like throwing cards and money and smoking at the place.
Yeah.
And I remember as a little boy thinking, I see all these Asian people in there, and my dad was the only dark-skinned person in there, and nobody cared about that. All they saw was green. They just wanted, money. And after seeing that week after week for like 2 years, you just, nobody gives that a second thought. And that's what I appreciate about the Asian culture. They're not hung up on, the N-word and all that, like here in the U.S. And I'm not trying to pick on the U.S. because, I was alive during the civil rights movement. And I was shielded personally because of my father being in the military and stuff like that. But it's hard to explain, but during the 60s, that was a strange period in American history. And I tell like people connected with MCAT, the younger hosts and stuff like Scott Ramp that does a Wake Up Missoula and Noel McAvoy. When I was a little boy, they literally had those signs that said colored people drink here and, and whites here. And I thought it was ridiculous, but that's the way it was then. But, fortunately now we're in a time where so many people are intermarrying now, and I think that's a big improvement. We still have a long ways to go. And I'm not here to preach at folks and cast stones, but
That's
I don't care what.
Martians
Yeah, even Captain Kirk didn't care about race. Remember that episode we made out with that green lady? If Captain Kirk can make out with a green lady, I think Asaph can talk to white
I thought it was
people.
kind of funny. The Fox Channel was making fun of the two Star Treks. We have, Captain Kirk, he has hair. Captain Picard has no hair. Captain Kirk hot with the chicks. Captain Picard not so hot at all. Very stern.
I'm having fun having all of you on here, especially you, Mr. Greene, and of course you, Randall. And we're going to be an hour's almost gone by already.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And when we close
Time
this
flies.
show, yeah, it does. I told you it will fly. When we close this show, we'll reset everything for the second tape. If you want to be part of that, you're both welcome.
Now, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, you sound like Dixie Carter on Designing Women. Let me ask you some final questions here. The next show, we can have fun. We'll play Name That Tune.
All right.
I'll play some songs, and we'll have it where, Patti, you take the score, you kind of officiate, and we'll have you two pair off.
Oh, okay.
And see, the thing about this game that we'll do in the second show, I may not necessarily start at the beginning.
Okay.
of the song.
Ah.
Like for example, do you know this one here? Like, do you know this
And
one
it
here?
doesn't mean we can't help them.
Here's a test.
Los Angeles.
Those Street Blues?
There you go. You remember
Did my
that?
point carry over into the
I'll do it
next-
again, yeah.
It's always important to establish support systems.
We make up the rules as we
That's
go
right, you
along.
have to keep track of that.
That's the
Black and
history.
white.
I don't know if you ever watched that. That show is tame compared to Law and Order.
Yeah.
And I did
Oh,
Law and
sure.
Order earlier on this show. I don't know if you noticed it.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Do the CSI thing.
CSI right now are playing new songs.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop on that chord, but that's pretty cool, that those chords there.
Yeah.
But no, Hill Street Blues is very, very tame.
Hmm.
in
I
compared
think
to
since
Law
they're
and Order.
both history teachers, you should try to throw in some historical songs.
Yeah, we can do that. We can
Oh,
do that
yeah.
when we play Name That Tune in the next one.
Sure.
So let's wind down this show here and make some final introductions, and I'll do my Marantha greeting, and we'll do the half of that Burt Bacharach piece to conclude this show, and then you guys just stay seated while I turn this off, and then we'll set up for the second taping.
Alright.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being part of our show, and we'll do some final acknowledgments again. Our veteran guest and our hostess, Patti Reed. And then we have Pee Wee. Can you pick up Pee Wee and let her get seen on camera, maybe?
Oh, yay,
Pee Wee is our mascot.
Hanging in there.
Mr. Randall Williams is our guest today, and
Thanks
he's a
for having me.
graduate of the University of Montana, history graduate. And he'll
With
be...
a PhD.
Yes, and he's going to be getting married soon, and we want to congratulate him. And
Thank you.
we'll have you come on a show.
The future husband of America.
When you're ready, just let me know. Do you have my email address, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, just let me know after you get married and you honeymoon and
Sure.
whatever.
We'll be in
Bring your
touch.
wife. We have Linda Brooks Curtis who
Call
comes
me
on the
after
show,
that.
and
Of the wedding.
I think you did a wonderful job singing today on that
Yeah.
sunrise
Lovely.
sunset.
Beautiful.
That was good. And of
Think about
course,
it for your wedding.
on my right, Professor Robert Greene, history professor at the University of Montana, and I'm very humbled to have both of you here on my show
thanks for
today.
having us.
And
Thank
thank
you
you for
very much.
taking time to come and be part of it and hang out with us here at the cafe.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna sign off here and get ready to play Name That Tune. You'll find this interesting. Do you remember Name That Tune?
I do, yeah.
There was a
I've
host
worked
named
with
Jim Lang,
Uh-huh.
and they had a thing where say, we named this in 3 notes. Of course, Asaph, I used to name it like real fast, but I wasn't on the show, so